Today we're going to make my family traditional meatballs that were taught to me about 40 years ago by my grandmother, passed on to my mother, and then on to me now as a professional chef. So I'm going to show you the old school and professional way combined of making the proper meatball. We're going to start with, this is 1 pound of ground all natural beef that we grind in-house. All the meats, let me just say, all the meats are ground in-house. We have 90% whole beef. This is Berkshire ground pork, and this is grass-fed veal, all ground. We're going to take a pound of each, put them all, this is into our mixing bowl. The reason why we use 3 different types of meat: beef is the base of most meatballs, pork has the most flavor into the meatball, and veal neutralizes. So the reason why we use all 3 together, it makes a perfect harmony of the perfect harmony of the perfect meatball. So what I'd like to start by doing is I'm just gonna squish all 3, combine them before we put any seasoning in, to make sure that the ratio is perfect. Just a little bit of love. Beautiful. Then what I'm going to move over to is I'm going to go light seasoning in the beginning, and then we're going to add as we go. In any type of cooking, whether it's meatball or not, you can always add more to a dish, but it's hard to take it away. So if you were to put too much salt or too much Pecorino Romano cheese in right now, you're not going to have such a great meatball. This is, we're going to move over to putting the eggs in. Basically, I have 5 yolks. Technically, the ratio should be 1 yolk per pound of meat. So I'm really just going to grab approximately 3 out of the 5, put it right in there. What this does is help moisture and to bind the meat. So I'm just going to rub that in real quick. So if you see, it's loosening up the actual meats, allowing me to stir it, to mix it a little bit better. Okay. Now that I have that where I want it, I'm going to start seasoning. One of the other secrets, I use sweet shallots, not onion. And this is pureed 50% onion, 50% sweet shallots to 50% garlic. We're going to just throw that in there. It's roughly about 1/4 cup. 1/4 to half, depending on how much you like garlic and how much you like shallots. Then I'm just going to take a little bit of sea salt. I'm going to sprinkle it around. I'm not going to go too crazy because I am going to be adding high content, salt content cheese. So we'll add a little bit at the end if we need to. One of the other secrets, Pecorino Romano cheese. You go to a lot of restaurants and people say, would you like more Parmesan cheese with your pasta or your meatball? Pecorino Romano is made from sheep's milk and it's aged. It's sharper and it's saltier. This is probably the highest quality Locatelli cheese. Locatelli Pecorino Romano. So very high salt content, but a lot of flavor. So the better the quality of the product you use and the procedure in how you use it means what the end result will come out. What I'm putting in is some day-old bread. One of the top secret things here is a little bit of milk. Everybody wonders what it is. Why is the meatball so soft? Why is it so fluffy where everybody else's is rubbery? I'm going to give you it, the whole world. Day-old bread. This is what we call chiffonade basil. Chiffonade is a fancy French word for thinly sliced. Being brought up in this, coming up in this, I'm going to probably give a nice, that's probably 1 nice handful. This is fresh Italian flat parsley. So you have chiffonade basil and you have flat Italian parsley chopped roughly fine. You don't have to go too fine because it gives a nice fresh herb appeal to the actual meatball itself. I'm going to do the same thing. 4 pinches, probably about 1 nice handful. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to mix this up. Okay, now that I have the seasonings where I want it, I have the egg, I have the cheese, I have the fresh herbs. I also have the day-old bread. And I have a touch of cream and milk. Now you can see how it's loosening up. So this is where, whenever you're using raw product and you end up using breadcrumbs or bread, that's why this is a little bit loose. So I want to mix it properly, make sure, because as you're rolling the meatballs, you want each meatball to have the same consistency as the next. The only way to do that is pure elbow grease and love, which you can see we're doing here. It's one of very important move before you start searing this off, before you start cooking anything. What you want to do is you want to see the consistency. Is it too loose? You make a meatball, is it flat? Obviously you can see it is. I smell it. If I could smell the cheese, the aroma of the garlic, the aroma of the shallots, if it can come through to me raw, that means it's going to translate well into cooking. Obviously this is a little bit thin. So one trick is at the end. This is the mistake most people make when they're making meatballs, and the reason why they have rubbery results. So now I have a loose meatball. So this is the mix. You want to sprinkle. So you don't, before, like I told you in the procedure, you don't want to put too much in the beginning because it's hard to take out. So you want to put a little bit in, mix it up, add, see how it sits, and then move on from there. So what I'm doing is I'm putting just a pinch, 2 pinches of freshly ground Italian breadcrumbs. We take day or two old bread and we grind it down ourselves. And then I mix it in to the mixture. Now remember, you have a lot of moisture in the meat and you're adding dry breadcrumbs. That is so it binds it together and creates the perfect shape for you. It's not doing much for flavor, it's really just for binding and shaping the meatball so they all cook perfectly, especially once you're going to put it into your sauce. So you put a little bit in. Good?
Yeah, it just
okay.
freaked out.
You put it in, it's still a little bit light, so now I'm going to go a little heavier with the breadcrumb because I want it to be a perfect shape and I want consistency. As you go through a few batches of these, you'll realize how much you need. A recipe is really just a foundation to build upon. Each cut of meat, each bag of cheese, everything, every ingredient I have. No same chicken, no same, no same steer, no same pork. So every single batch could be different, and that's why you have to put love into it. Because I need to be able to say it needs a little pepper, it needs a little salt. Which I'm going to add a little bit to now. Now, we've gotten to a place, this is pretty much the end. I let it sit for a second because the moisture that is in the meat, the milk, the eggs, is releasing and it's being absorbed right now by the day-old bread and the breadcrumbs. So if you were to rush to a pan right now, probably wouldn't translate into the perfect shape or consistency. So basically you want to wait about 5 minutes after mixing before you go to cooking. Because then all of the dry ingredients will absorb the wet. Okay, so now what we're doing, I'm actually using olive oil. Roughly maybe about a quarter inch thick in the pan. I don't want to fry the meatballs. People say frying meatballs. You just want to sear it. What we're going to be doing is actually just searing it by putting it into hot olive oil, medium to medium high heat. You're going to seal in the moisture of everything that we just did. But there's a misconception about frying meatballs. It's more about just searing them, giving it texture and holding in all of that flavor and all of the moisture that we just created. I'd hate to lose that. Roughly this is going to make about 10 to 12 4 to 5 ounce meatballs. You'll get a feel for this as you start rolling the first few. You'll get a good idea of where you want to be at. You just want there to be no creases, no holes like that, so you just want to keep going over that area. Then just go like this, little love. Like I said, no cracks. You don't want any holes in it, because then when this hits the olive oil, it'll actually split open.
Just like your skin, you don't want any cracks or holes.
I want no cracks or skin. That's why I look like I'm 22.
Right. It's the meatballs. Do you put these on your face at night?
I do a meatball mask.
A meatball mask. Yeah. I think that's good.
And the meatball mask is, I walk out and people really enjoy it, and they ask me what my skincare regimen is, and I tell them veal, beef, and pork.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So there you go.
So let's see. I don't think I have cracks.
You got cracks.
I need more love.
You need more love. Not hard. Just like this.
All right.
Yep. Perfect. Perfect. Go try to do on top. Yep. Like gravity, do the rest.
Okay.
And then try to just. Yep.
Rotate it.
That's it. Now take it and form it. Right?
Into a ball.
Yep.
Okay.
It looks pretty good.
All right. This is a pretty good ball.
Yes. If it cracks, though, you know what it says. And we got one more.
All right.
Look. Almost, right?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Very good. Thank you.
Do one more. 6, 9. Actually, what did I say? 10 to 12? And number 10.
Wow. How did you know that? That's crazy.
I've done this a couple times.
A few times.
A few times. So now what we have here is, what I have back here, just so you know, before we go, because it's going to be a quick process. This is marinara sauce. I import my own Italian products. These are San Marzano plum tomatoes from San Marzano, Italy. They are the best. So I've already made a marinara sauce. What we're going to do, and what you should do at home is, so what we're going to do, so the marinara sauce is an all-natural San Marzano plum tomato sauce, roasted garlic, clove, fresh onion, basil, very simple. The quality of product stands for itself. So the reason why I bring that up is I have one simmering in the back.
Okay.
We're going to be searing in hot olive oil these meatballs. We're going to get them browned.
Okay.
And once they get brown, we're going to put them in the sauce and let it go really slow.
Okay.
And that's the way that you keep the meatballs moist, tender, and you're going to serve them out of the red sauce.
Oh, gotcha.
So you'll see it'll make sense in a second. You want to do the first one?
Sure.
Go very slow. That's hot olive oil.
Just drop it?
Just drop it very slow. You see how it's sizzling?
Yeah.
Exactly what you want. And that's just keep going around. So now we're not really frying, we're searing, right?
Searing.
If we were frying, we would be submerging it into it, right? Yeah. So it is fried meatball, but it's not really frying. It's more like a fried cutlet.
And so do they like turn or?
Yeah, so we're going to keep it on each side roughly 2 minutes. We'll flip them. We'll go on the sides, and we're going to caramelize, what they call caramelizing, the meat on the outside before it goes into the red sauce. So basically, you always flip one over just to see where you're at.
Yeah.
So I might need to let it go a little bit more. So basically, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes on each side. And like I said, you just want to get this nice brown. And then before that, then we're going to be going into the marinara sauce. What the marinara sauce will do, you're going to go slow for probably about within an hour and a half to 2 hours after searing and entering the marinara. These will absorb the sauce, it'll keep the texture that we just seared on the meatball, but it'll absorb the sauce, and the sauce protects it from drying out.
Oh, how cool.
So you just go for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, very low and slow, and what you'll have at the end is the perfect meatball.
I think that's probably like the biggest problem. People like to rush when they're cooking.
Look at that. Yes, see that? If you like, rushing. I wanted to flip it over quick, but I know I might ruin it.
Yeah.
So it's just, don't be scared either. A lot of cooks are scared. Oh, I don't know what temperature. I don't know. Just do it. Just go at it, because all you got to do is just look. Right. So literally 3 minutes later, perfect caramelized meatballs. I just like to do this a little bit. It mixes up the fat content releasing from the actual meat right now, because you're going into olive oil with meat fat. And what that does, it just want to make sure, it's almost like blending it. That way all the flavor is getting around the edges. Keep it on this side, again, 2.5, 3 minutes. It's completely up to you. If you have the time, taking your time would be better.
That must be my meatball right there.
I see the crack?
Yeah.
just so everybody out there knows, that's the crack. That's the cracked meatball. But what ends up happening, I don't also want to flatten them.
Right.
Right? So that's why, honestly, one of the reasons why I do this is to get that.
Oh, I see.
So I don't want to have to fry the meatball so it's absorbing all the oil. I want to just get the sear. So I will move around the oil to help me with that. And these are just tricks of the trade from years of just cooking. You could do it any way you want. But these are just the tricks of the trade from me. I'm going to take yours and sear it a little longer. I like this actually because I want to show people there's no right or wrong. It's quality product, procedure. Take your time. You could put it on its side. You could flip it over. You could do whatever you want. At the end of the day, it's your recipe. I know what I do for consistency in a restaurant, consistency across the board, but it's your recipe. Do what you want. Have fun with it. That's what cooking is about. Cooking brings people together. It brings families to a table during times that they normally wouldn't. And actually, that's what meatball. It's crazy because National Meatball Day, to me, every Thursday, every Sunday, we had a pot of sauce on. We had meatballs. We had brajol. So it's actually Americanized that we have meatballs. But the truth is, it means so much more to an Italian American like myself. Because it meant family, and it meant bringing everybody together at the same time, 1, 2, 3 times a week. No arguing, no fighting, everybody got along. And if the world would actually go by that old Italian heritage and way of thinking, we'd be in a pretty happy place.
Sounds like you need to send the meatballs to DC.
We're going to put them on dry ice and send them to DC. Nancy's my mother. My grandmother was Nancy, and my sister's Nancy. It means a lot to me. My grandmother influenced me to cook. And my great-grandmother taught my grandmother taught my mother, and my mother taught me at a very young age. And I mean 6 years old, being underneath the table while she's making homemade pasta, meatballs from scratch, manigot, just traditional, homemade, you don't see them anymore, Italian dishes. And what it ended up doing was influencing me so much. By the time I got to high school, my mother was already pushing me to go into the restaurant business. She knew I had something I didn't even know I had it myself. But it's actually influenced by Nancy. And they've all passed on except my sister, obviously. And the story of this restaurant reflects the name Nancy. Believe it or not, I moved to Florida to actually take care of my mother because she was terminally ill. And during the time spending the last few months with her, we would talk about how we were going to move to Jupiter and we were going to open up an Italian restaurant where I was going to cook and she was going to do the maitre d' and she would do the back of the house. Unfortunately, she succumbed to an illness and it ended up taking her life. But I carried on the tradition by opening the restaurant in her honor. So the reason why I wear Nancy on the bottom of my chef jacket is she's always got my back. So don't crack your meatball because my mom's watching.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I've shut this down on heat. What I'm going to do now, I have the marinara sauce. I'm just going to shake off a little bit of the excess oil. It's got enough flavor from the veal, beef, and pork. Nice. As you can see, that's exactly what we're looking for. top and bottom. We're going to go right into a dish like this. This is how we do it at Evo. You could put it over pasta. You could do whatever you want. Make a meal. I'd say make a meal out of it over pasta. This is my appetizer here that we do at Evo Italian. What I'm going to do now, I accompany this. These are Parmesan crostinis with fresh herbs and extra virgin olive oil. Actually, well, I don't want to hide the meatball. What I do next is I put this is fresh whipped ricotta cheese from Italy. I put just a little dollop of that right there. It actually complements it nicely. We'll get a little fancy. We'll put this is a fresh garden basil, which you could actually tear apart or just leave in and eat with itself. And then I finish it. This is 24-month aged DOP. 24-month aged, yes. DOP Reggiano Parmesan. This is the king of all cheeses. This is considered one of the greatest artisan cheeses in the world. This is what we put on top of all of our pastas and serve at our tables. Just sprinkle it around a little bit, clean up the dish, and there you have it. Evo Italian, authentic and traditional. Grandma Nancy's homemade meatballs.